Hello, dear students, and welcome to another lesson in the School of Innovation. I'm your teacher, Yaniv, and this week we are talking about getting the right shit done with objectives and key results. My guest is a serial entrepreneur, designer, and former doctor. His latest venture is called MetaBeta, a portfolio management suite for startup accelerators and early-stage investors that streamlines deal flow, tracks company metrics and portfolio performance, and increases the engagement of mentors, partners, and alumni. Please welcome Marius Ursache. Hey Marius, welcome back to school.
Hey, Yaniv. Good to be back to school. Although I'm not sure. I hope there's no exams and homework at least for today.
Of course there is. There's a quiz at the end, but it's not for you, it's for our listeners.
Oh, that's good.
So, listen, man, the reason I wanted to have this call is because I came across an article that you wrote. I thought it was super interesting. It's called, I like the title as well, by the way. It's called Keep the Main Thing the Main Thing. And it's a guide to implementing OKRs and creating accountable teams. And in the article, you specifically reference startup teams, okay, and how they can build accountability and operational excellence with OKRs, which are an acronym for objectives and key results. We were going to try and broaden the scope beyond startups, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. And so, first of all, I want to know what made you write that article.
Okay, so I'm not sure if I should start with the end and get to the start, or start with the start and get to the end. But I think the second approach is better. I've been an entrepreneur for more than 20 years. And I didn't go to school for that. I actually graduated med school, so I should have been an MD. But then the entrepreneurship bug bit me. There was no vaccine, so here we are. But what was interesting is I started like many entrepreneurs because I was a good designer, and then I thought, oh, why not have my own company instead of work for others? So I started that, and what happened is I got to a roadblock where I realized I hate management. I hate managing people. I hate managing teams. When you're managing people, usually if the company is successful, it's because of the team. If the company is crap, it's because of the manager. So for me, after a couple of years of doing that, it was, I realized I'm a bad manager. I don't like doing it. But then later on, so I quit doing that. I hired a manager, but then I realized that, hey, actually, that's not better either, because you can't really do things the way your vision is. So you can't really get to your vision. Things change, and sometimes the vision belongs to the person who implements it. Many years later, after taking a 10 years break from that, so being an entrepreneur, but having someone else manage my company, I realized it's not creating the right culture. So basically, I came back and started this fight of looking how can someone like me, who's not a traditional manager, like someone who's only focused on systems, on doing stuff, managing people every day, and having that as the main job, which even now, it's hard. I have to be a product manager. I have to manage my team. I have to be an entrepreneur and look for resources for my company, and I tried to find processes and systems that would help me. So that's how I came across. I went through a lot of stuff. Agile management, traditional project management, team management, human resources, all the things like that. The theory. What I realized, and probably a lot of people will debate me on this and disagree with me on this. I think management is far from being a science. I think it's an art, and a lot of people, like consultants, try to justify this by projecting some sort of science around it. Maybe there is, but I think that our capacity of thinking at systems level and predicting what can happen in a system with some very unpredictable elements, which are people, is very, very difficult. And I think it's arrogant to say, hey, I'm a good manager, I have everything under control. That means you're delusional. So, what you can do as a good manager, again, this is my perspective, but it has worked for me for the past 7 years and with other startups and companies that I've helped implement the system of OKRs. You cannot control things. You can just prepare and create a system that's very adaptable and very adjustable. And some components that are very essential for me in this, the team should manage itself. This is how I got, to OKRs and the specific flavor that I'm presenting in that article, and that I'm currently. It's the exact method that I have with my team, and it's working.
How did you know it was working? Because you said you've tried a lot of different other methods. When did you know that OKRs were working?
So working means for me that is better than everything. The situation is better than anything I tried before. And I can see that in the team morale. I can see in the way they interact with me. I can see in the things that we're doing. If you were to measure the output or the outcome simply, with a spreadsheet, it wouldn't be impressive. But for me, and again, because success is sometimes a very personal definition, sometimes we can measure it in the bottom line, in the profit, or in the revenue, or in the how much money you've raised, or how many customers you have. In the end, for me, it's about things that are in my team, in my company. How are they going? How is performance seen between team members? What's the dynamic of the team? Again, like when it comes to doing things. And I can tell you, like right now, of course, like we have a lot of problems, but that's normal. That's part of the adaptability because the systems change. We have a lot of assumptions, there's a lot of uncertainty, but everybody in the team pulls their weight. There's no need for like carrots and sticks or anything else, and everybody is aligned in terms of what they're working on and why they're doing this. Which comparing like with a lot of other companies I've worked in, I've built, I've managed, I've advised, I think it's a very good place.
Have you seen OKRs scale with the size of the company? Or would you say that OKRs are good for a certain size of a company and not another?
So OKRs were actually again like not invented because nothing is like invented completely like from scratch. Were adapted and made to work in the context of a management performance for a big company at Intel in the 80s by Andy Grove. And then in the 90s, John Doerr, who's a VC at Kleiner Perkins, and Kleiner Perkins was one of the first investors in Google, brought that approach and taught Sergey and Larry and the Google team how to implement that. And from there, it spread to a lot of Silicon Valley companies. Again, like right now, there are lots of consultants. Like one of the people who are promoting it successfully and have shared like exactly how it's done is Christina Vodke, who used to work at Zynga. But again, taking it from there, you implement it, and in any company, you adjust it based on how you see it, based on how the team is, based on the challenges, on the status of a company. And the way I implemented it was just like continuous experimentation, teaching other people, seeing how it works in various companies over the past 7 years. And it can work. It works for Google. It works for a two-people team. I think as any tool and any process, it's important for you to use it and adapt it based on a internal feedback loop cycle.
I think what you're saying about adaptation is a really important insight, and I think it's typically ignored or overlooked because the system, as a system, the objectives and key results, which we'll get to in a second, on the surface, it seems like a very easy thing, like a very simple system to implement. But what you said about adaptation is, I found 100% true. You need that special flavor that works for you and for your team. So, what I liked about your article is that you just put everything out. You put everything out on the table. You're completely open and transparent about, how you're using it, what works and what doesn't. And for listeners who haven't read the article yet, let's try to dive into your specific flavor. Like, how does it work for you? You're currently running MetaBeta. How does it work for you guys?
It was great, but needs a lot of improvement, and I don't know how to improve it right now. In 1 year, it's going to look different, not radically different. But let me put it this way, because you said again, like you're going to provide the link to the article for people who want to get more in depth to it. But let's assume that you listeners haven't read about it. So, what is OKRs? It's a management performance methodology. It's an approach, like many other approaches. It's not the approach, it's not the Bible or the Quran or anything else, but it's objectives and key results. So it's about setting objectives at company level and then at the individual level, and then key results. So basically, it's like how you measure. We all know about SMART objectives: simple, measurable, achievable, time bound, and realistic. Right. This is again like another flavor that's more focused on not on the theory, but actually how do you do it? You set some objectives which are something inspirational for your company that everyone can see. I guess that SpaceX is like take people to Mars, move humanity to Mars, and then it's actually how you can break that into smaller parts and measure things so okay, where we are with our objective, and then for every member in the team is how are you contributing to this, and how do if you're on track, if you're behind, if you're ahead. And it not only in startups, in any innovative company, any innovation project is the same. It's innovative because nobody has done it before, right? When you think of like long-term goals for a company, for a project, we suck at being able to predict the future, right? So on shorter term, it's more predictable, and you don't need we need to change it. That was not okay, and so on.
So it's a way of aligning your team around a shared vision, I guess, and then breaking down that vision into subsequently smaller and smaller pieces. So you go from vision to setting yearly goals to setting quarterly, right? OKRs, individual quarterly OKRs, then weekly priorities, then daily tasks. So it's really a whole kind of funnel from this large vision to the actual day to day.
So it's going from a vision that's, let's say, possible, right? It's possible to climb the Everest, to something that's more feasible. Yeah, we can go to the base camp to reach the base camp. Other people have done it. It's not that dangerous. Okay, it's not easy either, and get to something probable, right? So it's basically trying to deconstruct something that's a big vision into something more manageable. Like one of the problems that I see very very often in especially in small companies, in big companies it's always a problem. It's accountability, and people make very little difference sometimes between being responsible and being accountable. Being responsible is you saying, I'm going to do this, count on me, I'm going to do this. Being accountable means that if you haven't done it, you're going to do it overnighter to finish it, or you're going to pay for it, or you get I don't care, you're going to get it done. And in big teams, again, it's a lot of politics. There's a lot of legacy structures. I haven't seen many companies where big companies where everyone is accountable. But in smaller teams where you have a lot more control about like who are you hiring as a CEO, you can hire the right people, you can talk to them, you can select them, and you can work with them. Uh, I think it's possible to have like a very high level of accountability, but a lot of entrepreneurs and CEO I work with don't know how to do that. It's either because of lack of experience, it's about like personal traits, it's because of the obsession for control. Like a lot of the founders are people who are very motivated. Their obsession to get to their to reach and achieve their vision makes them control freaks. And when you try to control what another person does, it's very hard to get them to be accountable. If, let's say, I hire you, you're a great innovator, and I say, Yaniv, you should do this, you should do that, you should get to that result, you should get to that result. It doesn't matter if you're a good person, if you're a great mind, an expert. It's not your dream, it's not your vision. And even if I sell it to you, you're going to say, yeah, but I don't want to implement it this way. I think like we should do things differently. So that's one of the most important parts that people don't get, and where OKRs, if you implement them correctly, work, is basically your role as a leader or as a manager is to set the OKRs at company level, at team level, but then everyone else should decide what are their OKRs, their individual OKRs. If you tell them, hey, you should have 80 sales calls or sales demos this quarter, or like you should go 2 times per week at the climbing gym so you can get endurance. It's very hard for people to, yeah, they're going to say, yeah, boss, I'm going to do it, but it's very unlikely for them to be accountable. And you have to tell them, like, look, what's important is for you as a team to set objectives and key results that are measurable, that are feasible, but you decide what they are. As a manager, the only thing I can say is like, okay, this is not really measurable. And the other thing I can say is like, okay, everyone has said, but if you put all the OKRs together, it's not clear for me how we get to meet our OKRs as a team. So let's say I know I want 80 sales calls, and let's say like two team members say I'm going to do 30, the other says I'm going to do 40, which makes like 70. I'm not going to say, hey, you should do also 40 to the guy who does 30. I should tell both of them, like, guys, you know, work it out between you, ask help from someone else, but I don't see how we're going to get to 80 because the total of your stuff is 70. Again, with at least in the beginning, until people get used to this, what's very, very important is to shift their thinking from tasks and actions and activities to outcomes.
Hey, it's Yaniv. Sorry for the interruption. If you're enjoying this lesson, then please consider buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com / Yanivko. That's YANIVCO. Thanks. And now back to the lesson. I want to talk about motivation and I want to talk about habits because I think you sort of touch on that inadvertently, I guess, in that section on routines, which I think are key and a lot of people are missing it, especially in the beginning as you're trying to implement OKRs. You got to put in routines, right? To create those habits, to get people using the system, getting comfortable with it. Can you talk about some of the routines in the article and the ones that you guys use?
Sure. So, first of all, like just to clarify something very briefly, because I think it's misunderstood motivation, you cannot motivate people. You can destroy their motivation, that's for sure, but otherwise, you have to find what motivates each person individually and see how you can fit that in the role they have in a company, in your team, in your company, and so on. Back to the second part, any system, any theory, any framework is useless if it stays on paper. And that's the thing. Like I saw a lot of companies, some companies, even like one of my companies, former companies, where I tried to implement the system and I didn't get the buy-in, right? So, and I've seen this happen like with a lot of tools. If you don't have the actual, like, implementation, the behavior of doing that, it's not going to work. It's going to be something nice, the management is going to put it in reports, but it's going to be useless and annoying to most people. So, to have a new behavior, again, I'm going to refer to a model that's very simple and very simplistic, but works, from BJ Fogg. Behavior means motivation, the ability to do that thing, and triggers. Motivation comes from the fact that, hey, actually you decide what you do, as long as what you focus on this quarter is going to support us as a company reaching those objectives as a team, then that's fine. And again, it has to do with like selecting the right people, so recruiting, training, the roles that they have, the kind of things they do in your company. But that's another 4-hour talk. uh, Ability is about the tools, right? So we use Confluence from Atlassian, which is a wiki kind of stuff to keep our things. You can use Google Docs, Google Sheets, doesn't matter. Just use one tool. Do not use like a lot of tools, and use one tool that you're already using with your team. So if you're using a project management tool with your team, use that. If you're all in the space, same office space, I don't know, and use whiteboards and post-its, do that. Doesn't matter. It has, the most important part is to be something that everybody is familiar with and uses it. Don't introduce new tools, people will hate it, doesn't matter. Second important thing is don't obsess on the tool, right? Don't try to find the perfect tool. It's going to change, and it's better to change it after you've tested the process and see what works for you than trying to get everything perfect. The third thing is triggers. And triggers is about routines, is how you make this behavior part of the daily routine. So I'm going to start again like from the quarter level. Every quarter we have two meetings. Well, actually we have like 3-4 meetings. But as at the team level, we have a quarterly review of the previous quarter, and that's like in the last week of the quarter, where you do a retrospective, try to figure out what worked, what didn't work, what lessons, what things we did, and we achieved, what we didn't achieve, why, um, and it's something where everybody participates. Then we have some other meetings at top level, like me and my co-founder, the management team, let's say. Then another meeting where we come back to the team and say, like, look, guys, we thought that we should continue by having these OKRs for this quarter. Any comments on that? We debate. We clarify them if they're not clear, and then basically everybody sets their, in the same meeting, like everybody sets their own OKRs for the quarter. Then we have every week we have an end of week meeting, which is like kind of like an all hands meeting, where we look at the company OKRs and team OKRs, and then individual product areas, and see where we are. So that's very important, because we keep those OKRs in every week. So every week we'll look at that and say, okay, we're behind with this. What do we do to push further to catch up next week? Let's focus maybe a bit more. What things happen, in life. There's a new customer. There's like a big request. There's bugs in production. There's a new opportunity, and you have to adjust, and adapt to other things that you have to do. But still, as the article title says, keep the main thing the main thing. And in these meetings, one very important thing that we do, every person defines his or her top 3 priorities for the next week. So again, results, not actions. Not, I'm going to do the podcast with Marius or with Yaniv. The podcast is going to be published. That's a result. The first thing is an activity. And it's done or not done. It's not like 80% done, because this discourages, it makes it okay to just like miss it and have it 80% done. And the reason why we do this is, again, to make sure that every week, besides what you already have, like all your to-dos, all the things that come from your customers, from your boss, from your colleagues, you keep those important things that will help us get to the vision as a priority for you. And then we have a daily stand-up. So it's a very short, like 15-minute daily meeting, where everyone says, like, okay, here's the status on my priorities. First of all, like, my priorities are like, this is my first, this is my second, this is my third priority. Here's where am I? If anything is blocking me, do I think that I'm going to get there? Is anything preventing me? And the reason is not just to report to the manager, hey, I've done my work. That's not the reason. The reason why we do this is to make sure that everybody keeps his eyes on the ball, because otherwise, you're going to get there. Oh my god, I have like so many bugs to fix, or my customer requested that, or I have to do the financial reporting, or I have to do that. So you're just going to do busy stuff. You're going to feel accomplished. Hey, actually, I've worked today. I did, I stayed in the office 12 hours. But at the end of the week, is the priority, is the result there or not? It's about focus and focusing on important things first. The second thing is helping people shift their behavior and get this in their blood of like thinking in terms of results and how to achieve them and how to uh, be more predictable for themselves. So learn how to plan rather than just like work 9 to 5 and so on. And the last thing that we do, and this works as a small company, each week I have a one-to-one meeting with all my team members. And but you can do this, with a bigger company at the department level and so on. Where again, the focus is for in that half an hour meeting is okay. So let's look at your overall OKRs. How can I help you? Where are you stuck? What can we do to get you to be back on track with your individual OKRs? And the rest is about getting feedback, giving feedback, and so on. So we don't have quarterly reviews of employees or annual reviews, because we have that every week. And if there's a problem, if someone's unhappy with something, or someone is exhausted or tired or disengaged, we see this like very very quickly and very easily. So it's much easier to fix things before it's too late. I'm very honest and open. Like, our product is still far away from being successful, but I have a team, and I can talk about like all the team members that I have right now, all my 5 colleagues. It's a joy to wake up in the morning and know that you come to work with other 5 people who are as motivated and as engaged as you are, and with the same goal.
I think that's a very good observation. System or not, or no system, whatever you decide to choose, at the end of the day, you want to feel comfortable with the people you work with, and you want to have fun working with them. So I think that's a very optimistic and positive note to end on. I will say that, of course, we'll link the article in the show notes. But if our listeners want to know about the best business lesson that you learned from the popular TV show South Park, then they should read the article, right?
Yeah, and watch the Underpants Gnomes episode from South Park.
Perfect. Marius, how can people learn more about you and more about what you do at MetaBeta?
About me, I don't think that's very interesting, but if you insist, you can become a stalker.
You're too modest, man. Too humble.
I guess like reading the articles that I post on the MetaBeta website, that would be a good thing. I think like the from my perspective, the ones that I think are most helpful, and again, they're based on real life stuff, not on reading books, and it's actually having walked the walk. Is this article about keeping the main thing, and building an accountable team through OKRs that you've mentioned, and another one about problem statement canvas, which is something I created while teaching at some programs at MIT, and has been very, very successful, and is now taught at MIT and Harvard. Is basically everybody jumps into building solutions when they start a new innovative project, and very few spend time being obsessed a bit about the problem to really understand what their the problem, not the solution. And MetaBeta is basically changing the way startup investment works today, like investing in startups. It's still it still happens the same way it happened like 30 years ago. And it's based on networks, on relationships, on where are you based, having access to capital. And we want to change this. Like, we want to make it able, like, for startups to find the best investors very quickly and get investment and focus on changing the world or making the world a better place. And the other way around, like for investors to be able to support startups that are doing great things, not just startups that have good connections.
So we will link the MetaBeta site and blog in the show notes as well. Marius, It's been a true pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Same, Yaniv. Good luck, and thank you for the invite.